Here we go. 1, 2.
Picture drive is mashed potatoes. E.T. would like a Reese's piece. This child robot's out here looking for love. 2 mice fell in a bucket of cream.
The Oasis is where we go gunting. Bingo, Dino, DNA. Indiana Jones and his Greaser's son find ancient aliens from outer space.
So we made this change to our podcast. Talking Spielberg until school reconvenes. We're ambling on bikes, our parents got a divorce. This is the temporary no-bearing beans.
Hey folks, before we get into the episode today, I want to tell you about a wonderful podcast by 2 great friends of ours. The podcast is Fiction Fixation.
Yes, and Courtney and Rose are a freaking delight, and we think you will like these guys if you like us.
We're going to let them tell you a little bit about themselves. Here we go.
There's a new way for you to experience your favorite books and movies, and that's Fiction Fixation Podcast.
We know you have a ton of podcasts on your roster.
But what are you supposed to do while you wait for the next episode? Sit with your thoughts like a sociopath?
Absolutely not. We would never let you do that. I'm Courtney.
And I'm Rose.
Every week, we bring you hilarious recaps of your favorite books and movies.
You can expect the classic millennial dark humor and unfiltered, intrusive thoughts.
Listen to Fiction Fixation wherever you get your podcasts.
So yeah, catch Fiction Fixation wherever you get your podcasts, and stay tuned to this feed to hear the long-awaited Twilight episode featuring Rose and Courtney. Catch that on Valentine's Day 2025, 6 months from now.
All right, mark your calendars, bitches.
Yes, and now, the Fabelmans. Hello and welcome to Load Bearing Beams, the Summer of Spielberg, for the very sad and somber
Oh, it's the
finale
end.
of the summer. This is the last Summer of
forgot.
Spielberg episode, or is it?
It fucking better be.
It is.
Okay.
But we're going to have a little bonus. Yes, I'm Matt Stokes,
And I'm Laci Roth.
and we just moved to Northern California, to Silicon
up.
Valley. We left behind in Phoenix our special guest. He's at home with the monkey. Who is it?
Is it fair to call my brother a monkey?
I'm talking about the monkey you bought
Yes,
because
it is.
you were feeling blue.
Yeah, you're a real mom type.
I also ran outside and took my brother out for a joyride during a tornado.
And you're always twirling.
Right, in your see-through night dress.
It has to be in the headlights of a car, though.
Oh, it's very cinematic because this episode and this movie is about the magic of the movies. It's the Fabelmans. Yes, it's the Fabelmans. But before we get into that, yes, welcome to the show, Paul. We're so glad to have you here.
Yes.
Oh, thanks for inviting me. Anytime, like I told you before, any chance I have to talk about Spielberg, I'll talk about Spielberg. So I was really happy that you guys were doing this series. And I reached out to you and said, hey, let me in. I want to talk about Spielberg.
Awesome.
And I was happy to get you on this episode because you are a filmmaker yourself, in addition to being having a great YouTube channel where you review physical media and you really walk through and help me understand color grading, 4K restoration, the differences between an old scan of a movie. For example, you have a video on Twister because people were complaining about the color green, and then you explained, but that more accurately recreates what it looked like in the movie theater. I mean, can you just tell everybody a little bit more about your channel and what you do?
So, yeah, I mean, I actually started off, I did it by accident, actually, because I'm an editor by trade. And I for myself, I was wondering, well, is a 4K better than a Blu-ray? I own them both, so I put them side by side. And then I thought, well, hey, wait a minute, this is kind of cool. If I want to know, then obviously other people want to know too. So that's kind of how it all started.
Wow.
About 5 years ago. And so I actually a lot of people think that I'm taking pictures off a TV. No, homie don't play that. I don't do that. I actually have the disc and I pull the images straight natively from the 4K disc and from the Blu-ray disc. And then I put them side by side. And if you don't mind, I'll just show a couple images here. So a lot of times too, it's not just about color correction. It's also about aspect ratio. And so this is a good one here with Kindergartner Cop. As you can see here, like the Blu-ray was framed wrong at 178 to 1, while the 4K was framed at 185 to 1. And you see how it cuts off the top of Arnie's head?
Yeah.
And then, of course, you have the color grading. So this is Ocean's 11. So you see on the Blu-ray, it has like this teal green.
Wow, he pops out a lot on the 4K.
Exactly.
He doesn't blend. Yeah.
Yeah, and the concrete wall looks more like it's actual concrete.
Right.
With the blue. There's now an example of Kindergarten Cop with the color grading, just the more vibrant colors that really pop. So that's in a nutshell what I do. And then I kind of narrate through it about why it looks the way it does, the differences, and so instead of just showing the pictures with music over it, I want to explain the reasons why they made the choices they made.
And you review individual titles when they come out.
Yeah.
Like the big, I feel like the big story in physical media of recent vintage was the James Cameron releases, and they were getting a lot of criticism. The Abyss and True Lies and Aliens coming to 4K, and people said it looked like shit, that maybe he used some sort of AI process.
Yeah, and so I've been seeing this a lot, where a lot of people they're used to the way a movie looks that they've grown up with or seen for years or decades.
Yeah.
And then when they see the 4K, they're like, this looks completely different than what I remember it looking like. And they have this knee-jerk reaction of saying, well, they effed up the transfer. It's a bad transfer. They didn't do it right. To me, when I see something like that, I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. Why does it look like this? What's the reasoning behind the choices they made? And so I do research on it. I've also know some people that still work in the industry. I know a friend of mine, Demetrios Polisario, that actually worked hands-on with restoration work, so he understands it. And I know some colorists. And so I talked to them, why do you think this looks the way it does? With True Lies, that's one thing I wanted to do is, we heard that James Cameron used an AI technology to help with the grain management, but why do certain frames look so waxy and smooth out? So I ended up finding a friend of mine that actually worked on the restoration, and he told me that the camera negative was severely damaged, and had a lot of anomalies in it that they wanted to get rid of. And Cameron, you decided to do lesser of two evils. You either leave it as is and it looks like crap, or you try to clean it up to make it look better. Mm-hmm. And so that's what Cameron decided to do, knowing that he was probably going to get a lot of shit about it for it.
So a lot of it is just like the way literally the physical media is stored. Like it can get damaged, right?
Yeah, the camera negative for sure. Because if, these major studios still, once a movie's done in the theaters, they put it in a vault.
Right.
And they don't touch it. And so depending on the type of negative, the film stock it can degrade. It can get debris and different anomalies on the negative that aren't supposed to be there. And so that's one reason why with restoration, they go in and clean up the areas from related wear and tear of age, anomalies that aren't supposed to be there. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it just can't be helped, and there's nothing they can do about it. But so that was that video, and boy, did I get raked over the coals for that video. But I won't get too much into it. But
well, why? So I understand why, like a color grading thing. I understand why that happens. Why there could be like just a bad color restoration. Mm-hmm. But like the aspect ratio thing that you showed us in Kindergarten Cop, how does something like that even happen?
It really comes down to just laziness. And so whoever did the scan or did the transfer, they just didn't frame it right. Mm-hmm. So they went in there and put it. First of all, that movie came out on Blu-ray in 2009, I want to say, when 4K TVs were first coming out, which have an aspect ratio of 16:9.
Uh-huh.
So a lot of times when they first were putting out the 4Ks, they wanted it to be 16:9 to fill the screen. And so a lot of times they put it at 178 instead of 185. I don't know the reasoning behind it.
Like it fills the screen, but it chops some shit off, right?
Yeah, that's
Got
the thing,
it.
because still 185, you still have a thin layer of the black bar on top.
Right.
And
It's just a
maybe
little more. Yeah.
they didn't want that. And so they just, reframed it to 178. But then you see what happens is it
You lose.
chops off half the head.
Right. Where we've all like messed around with our TVs and screwed up shit and have experienced this, or Matt will notice it on a bad transfer. I feel like he's definitely mentioned this before when he's like, I can't see that man's shoe.
Aspect ratios is something I can understand. A lot of this does go over my head. I wish I understood it better. I know I need to.
The Fabelman. I keep thinking of my heart out. Sorry.
Okay, I just wanted to let everybody know the day that this episode of on the Fabelmans comes out, August 23rd, 2024, Laci and I will be doing a YouTube live. Our very first YouTube live.
Okay.
Previous lives have been on TikTok at 9 p.m. Eastern. And we're going to be doing a wrap up on the Summer of Spielberg. Everything we've learned about Spielberg. We'll be doing our final thoughts on the man and his filmography. We'll rank the movies that we've watched, and I don't know, anything we haven't gotten to, and it'll be a fitting coda to our summer series.
I'm sure it will be a lot.
So YouTube / whatever our channel is, Load Bearing Beams Podcast.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah.
I was not prepared.
Paul, what is your relationship with Steven Spielberg, and like how has he affected you and what you do?
So Simon and I, my twin brother Simon, we, without getting too much into it, we had issues when we were kids, and we kind of used movies as our anchor and comfort. Mm-hmm. Again, without getting too much into it, we were abused in school, not physically but we were abused in school and a lot of other problems. And so when we came home, we wanted to get out of reality and just watch TV and vegetate. And so that is what kind of started us watching movies. And so as we got older in our teenage years, we started noticing exactly, well, wait a minute, how are movies actually made? And we started really looking at the way a specific movie was shot, the way it was blocked, the way it was handled. There's a script to these movies? We didn't know that. People actually have a script to this? How do they write the script? How do they come up with the story? How do they get movies made? And of course, I was born in 78, so we were raised through the 80s, and Spielberg was like the king of the 80s. And so we were raised on Spielberg. And when we became more and more interested in filmmaking, we decided, well, let's go ahead and take all of Steven Spielberg's filmography up to that time. This was like 93, 94, and just watch them all and study them. And we started making our own films in our house. We were 14 or 15. And we decided, you know what, let's try sending in one of our movies to Steven Spielberg. Who knows if he's actually going to see it or not? We don't know. But why not try? What's it going to hurt? And so it was titled Escape from Illusion. And like 2 or 3 weeks later, we received a letter from Amblin Entertainment. It wasn't from Spielberg himself, but still Amblin Entertainment.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys can see it there, but
Wow.
I have it framed there. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit here.
And it's on Amblin letterhead.
No,
There's
look.
Elliot and the moon.
Look at that.
Right.
Look, it looks typed.
And yeah, it was typed and it was signed by their PR person. And
it said, you fucking suck.
Yeah. So we gave up and we just, no, it said, thank you for your recent letter to Steven Spielberg with your film on Escape from Illusion. Then it goes in and just says that unfortunately Mr. Spielberg has other commitments with his new studio, DreamWorks, and thousands of other projects he has going on that he's just simply not able to send a personal letter. And then says, though Spielberg wishes it was otherwise, we regret he will not be able to provide you with comments regarding your film, therefore returning it to you. We hope you will not be too disappointed by this response. You are obviously two very organized and ambitious young filmmakers, and he hopes that you continue work in filmmaking and wish the best of your endeavors.
That's so nice.
Awesome getting a letter from
Yes,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
So yeah, so even though it probably wasn't what we expected to get from him, you know,
Right.
we're expecting, you're the greatest filmmaker I've ever seen in our lives. Come to Hollywood, make a movie with me. So, but still, it encouraged us to move forward.
Yeah.
And our dad was very supportive. And then, you know, as we got older, we just got into filmmaking. We never went to film school. Our film school was audio commentaries, behind the scenes, making ofs, featurettes, and just studying the movies. And so Spielberg was a huge influence on us.
In some ways, he is he is the model of what you were trying to do. He also didn't go to film school. He learned by just doing it, by just making the movies with the people in his life, and then just editing on his own. We still have the movie. I actually digitized it last year. I wish I would have brought a clip, because there's a clip. It's about aliens, and it's a clip where Simon is in the bedroom, and all of a sudden lights go on. And what we did is we connected all these different, really thin strings to different objects in the room. So when Simon
Home Alone it.
Exactly. So Simon would approach a shelf, and what we did is we set a camera up and had him look at the camera, and then we did another cut from behind, and all of a sudden, we pulled the string and stuff flies off of his shelf.
Right.
And I think we did it in reverse motion on a couple things, so it looked like it was going back in. And then we used sound effects to make it, and music to make it sound creepy and everything. But what's interesting is, if you saw it now, you'd be thinking, really? This is what you sent Spielberg?
Well,
but then you have to understand, this was back in 95.
Yeah, of course.
We did not have any of this technology that we have today.
Yeah.
And so what we did, we had one camera. And so we would plan out the shots. So we remembered something Spielberg said. He said, the hardest day of shooting a film is knowing what your very first shot is and getting that right. So we took that advice, and then other advice that he had on how to place the camera. So we had one camera, so we would do multiple angles, one from up here, one from face, medium, close-ups, all this stuff, wide shots with one camera. And then how we edited it together made it look like we had multiple cameras.
Right.
So we had friends that would watch it and saying, you did all that with one camera? How the hell did you do this with one camera? And then how we edited it back then, we didn't have the software we have today. We had we had a VCR. So we filmed it on our high-end camcorder, connected it with RCA cables to the VCR, and then we would use the remote to pause and record.
Yeah.
Pause, unpause. And we had a little soundboard on our lap that we would turn up and down with the little dials to add music that we would connect to a portable CD player. And so it was a lot of fun, and that's how we really learned how to make movies, is just by doing it ourselves.
I love it. I did some VCR editing, sort of. I hooked up multiple VCRs, or I hooked a DVD player up to a VCR so I could do a school project of a supercut of a bunch of different movies. And I felt like a little Steven Spielberg. What about The Fabelmans? Did you see this movie, the movie we're going to talk about today? Did you see it when it came out?
I did. I saw it when it came out. I will say it's not my favorite Spielberg movie, but I love it because it was basically how Simon and I were when we were young, how we saw things. We did, in the movie, it shows him buying all this equipment. Obviously, his family, his dad had a really great job. They were well off. Obviously, we weren't. So we didn't have all the camera and equipment that he had. So we had to figure out on our own of how to make it work the best with what we had. But yeah, I mean, we that's one reason why we went to go see the movie, is because we wanted to see how relatable it is to what we went through when we were kids.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it was with the filmmaking aspect.
Laci, you had never seen the movie before
never.
until we watched it for this
And
time.
I could slap your face that you hadn't told me to watch it. It's it's just my kind of movie.
I knew you would like it.
I loved it.
I wanted see this movie's only been out for. It's only been available for home viewing for like 18 months.
Well,
and I was
that's
like,
18 months that you could have told me.
I know,
about.
but I was like, yeah, we'll get to it. But it's been such a crazy 2 years, you know. But I knew you would like it, and I knew our kid would like it. And I loved it when it came out. It was one of my favorite movies of the year. Watching it this time, I was like, this vaulted up my Spielberg rankings. It's one of my favorite movies of the decade. I love it so much. It's so much better than I thought the first time when I again loved it the first time, but now I'm like, this is truly one of his very, very best movies, I think.
And watching so many of his movies all in a row can, would definitely make sense why you would watch that and let it shoot up I researched like how close is it to what actually happened, and by all accounts it is damn near exact. Mm-hmm. So it's also just like, it's just nice to see Steven Spielberg evolve as a person and be so like, just tell us what happened. I mean, the story's good enough as it is.
Yeah.
You don't have to tell it through an alien or make it bigger than it was. It was just a mature way of letting us know about his story.
Yeah, because Paul, what we found doing this miniseries is, and diving into Spielberg the man, is he does kind of like to tell tall tales about himself.
Yes, he does.
The whole story about him sneaking into Universal is fabricated. He lied about his age to the press for a long time. So it's fascinating that now he makes his autobiography, and by all accounts, it's pretty close to the real thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I think that. So, I mean, we always heard this with the interviews with Spielberg is that he's always wanted to make, not talking about the Fabelmans, but Schindler's List.
Mm-hmm.
So always wanted to make Schindler's List, but he knew that if he made it, all his films would completely change afterwards. And you could see that.
Mm-hmm.
A completely different tone afterwards. Before Schindler's List, he wanted to make fantasy, and a lot of his movies always has that aspect of his life of a child dealing with divorce, especially with E.T.
E.T. is his divorce movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
It came right.
And so that was his way of, as you said, making himself, I forget what word you used, larger than life. Is that what you said?
He tells tall tales. He self-mythologizes.
Yeah. And that was his way of dealing with it, dealing with the trauma, his way of dealing with it. So I honestly don't blame him for that.
Yeah, I'm never saying that to like criticize him. I'm just pointing out
it's a storyteller in him.
Yeah, because I actually love that he does it. I feel like it's part of the package.
Yeah. And it makes Catch Me If You Can make more sense. Like it's
That's why I chose these last three movies. We did Catch Me If You Can, then Close Encounters, and then The Fabelmans, and I really felt like they all kind of go together thematically. Watching this after watching Close Encounters, there's so much in this movie that is in Close Encounters, with the little train set, with the family dynamics, and there's so much stuff about the divorce that's in Catch Me If You Can as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even back in Jaws, there was it's not, and that wasn't as a word poignant as his other movies, but still the relationship between Roy Schneider and the kid at the dining table. Yeah. The relationship, and that they did not have a great marriage. It was a little rocky. So even back then, he had little things peppered into every one of his movies about divorce and marriage. And then I think it was after Schindler's List that he felt, okay, now I'm a more serious, more mature director. I can start telling things more seriously.
I think every time he's tried to really, since Schindler's List, every time he's tried to go back and make an earlier career movie, it's ended up like the BFG or Lost World Jurassic Park. It doesn't feel like he's harnessing it the way it is with the.
And even with Ready Player One, I mean, I've always said to me, the best parts were the, not the CG parts, but the live action parts, because that's to me where it felt like he had more heart into going back to how he used to make movies in the 80s and the early 90s with the live action stuff. And it felt like to me that all the CG stuff, he just sat back and said, okay, you guys do it. You do it.
Yeah, that Matt says that movie's his like midlife crisis, or just like trying to dip into like what the kids these days like.
Yeah, but I like the CG. I think he having a strong director. I don't know how actually involved or detached he was from the CGI, but just looking that movie compared to other CGI heavy blockbusters of the era, I think it looks way better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Definitely. But yeah, I agree that when he tries to make a fantasy movie, it doesn't work, and he told us why, because he's going to completely change as a person after Schindler's List. I mean, look at the difference between Jurassic Park and
having children
and The Lost World. Jurassic Park is more fantasy, more and then The Lost World is much more violent. It actually shows blood and a lot more and darker than Jurassic Park was. And then you have where you try to get into all the CG stuff with, like you said, the BFG and stuff. It doesn't work. It's not the same because he's not the same person as he was. And I think that's one of the biggest criticisms that people have against Spielberg now is that he doesn't make the same movies he used to. And that I noticed there's a divide there between people, fans of Spielberg, where they don't like his new stuff, and I like the old Spielberg.
Well, those people are babies and need to shut up.
Well, right, because what we want is for a director to put all of themselves into something. You can tell when they have. When they take their hands off the wheel, you can tell they haven't. So he's just not able to put himself into something and make it into something really fantasy. He's lived a fantasy his whole teenage life after the divorce and up and through his 20s. Pretending he was something he wasn't, or his life was bigger than it was, and all that, and then he just finally became at peace, and he became a parent, and he achieved all of his shit he wanted to. So now he can just be him.
Right, and also if you don't mature as a filmmaker and you just stay the way you are, what's the point?
Right.
I mean, Quentin Tarantino, he's matured as a filmmaker. Look at the differences between Pulp Fiction and what he's making now. This is the difference between Kill Bill 1 and Kill Bill 2.
Yeah.
And Kill Bill 2, when I first saw it, I said he's matured as a filmmaker because it's a much more dramatic, serious story than Kill Bill 1. So directors, they have to evolve. They have to mature as filmmakers. And you may not like everything they do, but I don't think you should disrespect them for it.
Right. They're not swinging and missing. You just don't like what they are about now.
Right.
It's just not for you anymore.
Yeah, and it's not like they like I don't feel like people are like, oh, the BFG is the best movie ever made. Like when he does what you say you want him to do, you don't care.
Right.
But no, this is a general problem with that, I think.
Yeah.
Fan culture is we want our very, very specific interests to be catered to.
Yeah. And I think one of the ones that people just rake him over the coals with is The Terminal. I don't know if you guys
Which is good.
watched that one.
I thought,
Wait, I thought we watched it. Oh, you know what? I always confuse it with Up in the Air. Damn it.
No, it's not his worst movie. I just think it's kind of a it's a nothing.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean it's and people, every director has their bad movies, their bad days. Not you can't hit it out of the park every single time. And I've noticed personally that when Spielberg writes his own movies, they're his worst movies.
Well, so he's written Close Encounters, The Fabelmans, and AI Artificial Intelligence.
When he writes,
those are the only ones he's credited with writing.
But he had co-writers with him, right?
Yeah.
So, co-writer on this, every other screenplay. So this is only his fourth credited screenplay. So Close Encounters, sole screenplay, Poltergeist, sole screenplay, AI, sole screenplay, and this he co-wrote with Tony Kushner.
Didn't he write Always?
No. I mean, it's like, he's still like the one totally in control of it all. He's even if he doesn't take screenwriting credit, how much literal writing he's doing, I don't know, but he's still totally the boss. And he has said like he does not like writing. He's a social person. He gets lonely. He doesn't want to sit up at a typewriter.
I relate to him so much.
You can honestly tell that. I mean, For me personally, I can see that my favorite movies and some of his best movies are ones that he didn't write personally himself. Except for the Fabelmans, I would make that as an exception. I personally didn't care for AI.
When did you see it last?
You got to watch it again. That is I have that as his second best movie.
It's really good. It's just, I didn't like it the first time either.
The reason why I didn't care for it is because it was so sad.
It is sad.
And I didn't want that.
Yeah.
Because I was crying like a baby in a theater, and I just, so that turned me off from it, because it's like, I didn't want to watch a movie sad. I wanted to enjoy it. But like I said, I haven't watched it in probably 15 years. So, it may change now.
It will still make you sad, but it's like, hey, that's what art is supposed to do. It's supposed to make you feel things. And this movie makes you feel things.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I've always said. I'm like, even if you hated the movie, it's still a feeling that you got from the movie. And so the movie did its job,
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm actually waiting, because I know they're going to put that on 4K sooner or later. So I'm waiting until the 4K, and then I'll actually buy
it'll
it.
force you to watch it. My only problem is when people say it's boring. I'm okay with someone saying it's sad, because it's not boring.
No,
it's beautiful.
Yeah. The visuals in it are outstanding.
Yeah.
I will say that if I had to choose between Minority Report and AI, I'd probably choose AI.
Why are they making you choose from those two?
Who's making you choose?
Who's making you choose?
Well, because they were closer together at being made. So
okay. Because we love Minority Report too.
2001, and Minority Report War of the Worlds was 2005, I think.
It's
At least War of the
2005.
Worlds was 2005.
It was 2005.
Yeah.
I went on my first date to see that movie.
Okay, quit talking about your dates.
Let's get into the history of the Fabelmans, and Lacey's got a little history segment. Before we do, I did want to thank one final time TJ Behrens and Wade Hemel for helping us with the Summer of Spielberg theme song, which I guess we're hearing for the final time this episode.
Oh, we're playing it?
We're not playing it right now. I'm just saying I wrote a note to myself. Make sure to thank them one more time, and not at the end of the episode when nobody's listening.
Oh, that's nice.
Lacey, tell us about the real Spielbergs.
So what I read all kind of happened after this movie came out, because people wanted to know, like, okay, this is what he went through. I mean, look at her hair. Her hair is even so similar to the mom's. I mean, it's just the only thing you might not know from the Fabelmans movie or know about his life is that for 15 years, his dad took the blame for this, and he let his kids think that for 15 years he was the reason they separated.
Yeah, that it was his idea.
That is his idea.
He wanted it to happen.
And Steven did not talk to his dad during that period, but they ended up reconciling and had a really good relationship afterward. But I mean, what I understand is he didn't catch it on camera the way that it happened. The affair is not caught on camera the way it happens in the movie, but he does discover it when he's 16, and he does have that moment in his room with his mom. She does cry to him, and she explicitly asks him not to tell. So and you feel it when you're watching Catch Me If You Can, when Leonardo DiCaprio is going through that. It's like he gets it so dead on right, the way that would feel and look, and the way you internalize it, and just it changes your whole personality.
In Catch Me If You Can, DiCaprio's character, like, he doesn't react big. He kind of shuts down. He doesn't ask questions.
But it's perfect. But I guess because I've been there, like at the source of a trauma moment, like when when your insides are like melting, your stomach is in knots, and you're just like, you just have this realization in that one moment, nothing will be the same after this. Like you just feel it. And
you don't want to deal with it. You don't want to deal with it. You want to escape the reality of things, and so you shut down.
It's like a 10-yard stare. Yeah. But like you also can't let in the good because you're shutting it down. So you become...
And you're afraid that if you let in the good, then that's going to go away too.
All right. Well, and you just kind of start like giving that person the cold shoulder. You keep their secret, but you don't act the way you used to toward the person. But I want to say he was 16. I'm sorry, I did this research on Monday. I want to say he was 16 when he found out about it, and they don't explain how he found out. He just became aware of it, and then they didn't get a divorce from it until he was 19. So like he had to sit with it for years of like knowing it and seeing the uncle come over, Bernie, whatever his name was. So I mean, it truly was traumatic. Like, he basically was watching the train slowly crash.
Yeah.
And then it finally did.
And they were just like in the move, so his parents were both born and raised in Cincinnati. The Joseph McBride book we always reference has a lot of good information about the history of the Jewish communities in Cincinnati and lots of details about their parents and the different sort of Jewish families that they had. Like his dad was more liberal, his mom was more Orthodox, and then there was a real Seth Rogen's character Benny. There's a real life avatar for him, Bernie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and he was always there, and they called him their uncle.
Mm-hmm.
And the parents got the divorce. The girls were all told, because Spielberg has 3 younger sisters. The girls were all told it was the dad's decision because they were going to go live with the mom, and he didn't want them to resent the mom. Felt like this is a better home for them. I will be the bad guy. And basically the truth was not told publicly until Spielberg's dad died a few years ago. What?
You said the girls were told. They were all told this. Just because Steven knew that his mom had an affair going on doesn't mean he knows that that's why the divorce ended. It took 3 years. It's just as viable that the dad just decided this wasn't working for him anymore and it's his fault. Because the mom would have just kept going on.
No, the story as I understand it is, when they announced they were getting a divorce, it was because he wanted to move. He wanted to go be by himself, and she wanted to move back to Phoenix.
Yeah, they told all 4 of them, not just the girls.
I mean, there's this LA Times story where they interview Spielberg and his 3 sisters, and they talk about how horrible it was for Steven to live with this knowledge for so long and not be able to talk about it.
Okay, but he only has the knowledge of an affair. He doesn't have any proof that that's not why they got a divorce. Okay, whatever.
Basically, he knew why they were getting a divorce, but his dad didn't actually come out and say, this is why we're getting a divorce. He made like it was his fault and this is what he needs to do.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that they didn't really touch on a movie, if I remember correctly. It just all of a sudden, they say he's living in California and she's in Arizona still, right?
Well, no, they all went to California together, but
later on in the movie.
Yeah, she moves back to Phoenix.
Oh, yeah, she does move back to, but it was the moving to California that made her understand what she needed to do, because she just got more and more depressed and weird.
Yeah, and I mean, even back in the 90s, I remember hearing interviews of Spielberg saying that his mom was always mentally unstable.
Yeah, you can tell she's bipolar.
Yeah, and he said back then we didn't have names for it. We didn't know what bipolar was. Right. And now, and so I remember an interview he said that I wish we would have known now we would have known then what we know now, because it could have saved the marriage. But
affairs definitely happen in fits of mania, and blowing up relationships is a big part of it, or physically damaging stuff, or spending a bunch of money, or taking her clothes off. Like it was, as soon as she goes and chases the tornado. Obviously at that moment I'm like, okay, yeah, this is set in stone. This is what this is. But this is manic, childlike energy she's able to shoot out of herself.
And she was feeling that she was getting more attention from him than she was from her own husband. And I think that Michelle Williams did a phenomenal job in this. And I remember when this movie came out, critics criticized Michelle Williams' acting, saying that she acted like a soap opera, like it was watching a daytime soap opera.
No way.
I never felt that way. Number one, you don't know how that person actually looked and sounded in real life. Spielberg did. It's her mom. And from what he said in interviews, that she was basically a spitting image of her mom. His mom.
Larger than life.
Yeah, and if you've never been around people like that, you can't identify with that. I mean, I have, and people act like that, right? And they can sound like that. So I didn't have a problem with that, because I knew that people can actually be like that.
Yeah, there was some some criticism along those lines, but it did get a lot of praise, and she did get a Best Actress nomination.
Yeah, she did get a
for
Best
it.
Actress nomination.
I thought this is a quote from the Joseph McBride biography of Steven Spielberg, and this is from 1997. I thought this was fascinating. Quote, some of their Phoenix neighbors found Leah's romantic history a bit outre. I was always confused as to who Steven's father was, said Steven's friend Chris. Catherine Galway, like this author just went back and like interviewed Steven's old like neighbors and friends from all the places he lived. So this person named Catherine recalls that Leah told me she loved both men. She said she couldn't marry them both, so she married Mr. Spielberg. Steven's sister Sue says, we were bohemians growing up in suburbia. Steven once yelled at his mother during his adolescence, everyone else's mother is normal. They go bowling, they go to PTA meetings, and they play bridge. End quote. So it is funny to think of them as like little kind of bohemians in the 60s.
The movie handles it perfectly because that is exactly what it feels like. They all feel like they're part of a multi-spouse family. I mean, it's clear the uncle provides something that the dad doesn't, and vice versa. And the dad's busy enough to be like, it's okay.
To me, it was like, she's manic, she's bipolar, she acts like a kid a lot of times. He is much more mature and matter of fact and black and white, while
she's an artist.
Bernie was more loose, laid back, and have fun.
And like to engage with her the childish stuff that she did. Yeah.
So I'm sure she felt belittled by her husband when she acted that way. And so that's, like I said, she loved them both.
The movie made that. I mean, that I felt that.
Yeah.
And I've seen it in my own life. Like I've seen that happen where, okay, you love them both, but which one are you going to go with? Well, you're going to go with a more responsible person. But then I had more fun with this person. And, and so, I mean, and I think that the movie, like you said, handled that perfectly, the way they handled that.
The heartache.
I like that it makes a point of saying like Paul Dano's character, he gets her too though. Like he gets her in a way that Uncle Benny does not. Like he appreciates her on an intellectual level, and you can see like he really, really is in love with her. Yeah. It's not like this isn't a case where she is not appreciated.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just
they didn't become enemies. They were still close friends after the divorce.
Yeah, I read that so she married Bernie. He went and got remarried, and then Bernie died at 75, like relatively young, and then both of his parents lived till they were 100.
Oh wow.
After Bernie died, apparently
she started a restaurant.
And then Arnold, Spielberg's father, and Leah, his mother, then became really good friends along with his new wife.
Oh,
said they were the Three Musketeers after that. And
just like the Three Musketeers that they were before.
Yes,
that's kind of beautiful.
And his father's new wife, when she died, she was buried next to her first husband. And so there's this question, Arnold Spielberg, where are you going to be buried? And they invited him to be buried next to Leah and Bernie, and he says, okay, as long as I'm next to Leah, not to Bernie. So they're all buried in the same place.
Aww.
Okay, I mean, the genesis of this movie is during the pandemic. Spielberg, like for the first time in forever,
didn't have 7 things to do.
Right, he's just forced to stay at home, and so a lot of his kids come back and live in the same. It's like we were all under one roof. He says. Now the roof, he probably means like the little village they own.
Right.
Compound, yeah. But suddenly I was seeing my kids twice a month, running into them at the restaurant that we own. But yeah, he's a very social person. He needs constant stimulus, and he suddenly thinks this could all be taken away at any moment. Making movies. What movie? If I can make another movie, what's the movie that I need to make? And it's been the idea that's been percolating in his head since 2005 when he made Munich.
This is a movie in a movie, like, well, duh. But his dad, when his mom is heartbroken over losing her mom, he, please put your other stuff aside and please make this movie. This is the movie that will mean something to your family. Please make this. And that's what he finally did, because they both were asking him to make a movie of what happened.
Yes. Yes, and you can read like quotes from his sisters. Like they said, like I've seen it 7 times. I've seen it more times than I can count. It's really hard to watch, but they all feel like this is actually a movie of our
Right.
lives.
That's amazing.
Well, what I liked about it too is it didn't get melodramatic. It didn't get too into all the, you could spend 2 hours just on the mom alone with all of her problems. It could be turn into a therapy session. It didn't. It was still fun. It was still fun, and engaging, and entertaining.
He has such a gift for that.
And
yeah, this movie is a blast. It's so entertaining.
And it has no right to be.
Yeah, because it's not a downer. You don't feel sad afterwards after you watch it. And especially that ending shot, when he goes in and talks to David Lynch, who plays John Ford, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about the sunset or the horizon.
The horizon.
The horizon. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then you get that little tiny nod at the very ending where the camera isn't at the horizon and it tilts up to the horizon. Mm-hmm. It made me chuckle. It made me laugh. And so, this is not a downer type of movie, which could have easily been, a downer.
Yeah, and I think people were also, when they heard what it is, it's like, it's me as a young kid falling in love with the magic of the movies. I hear that sentence and I'm annoyed. That sounds like an annoying movie, and it's one that I feel like a lot of filmmakers are making that movie recently. A lot of Belfast and
a lot of friends that I know said when they heard this was announced and that Spielberg was directing it, they said, "Well, that's pretty pretentious of him."
Yeah,
it's his fucking story.
My thought, exactly. That was my thought. My thought is, well, who better to direct it than the person who lived it?
Right.
If someone else directed it, they may put in Hollywood cliches or Hollywood stuff that wasn't.
And they wouldn't get what bipolar looks like, right? Like the reason why you and me felt it, Paul, is because we've been around it, and it's so nuanced, and you have to do it with love because you do still love these people, even though they're unpredictable and they're larger than life, and that maybe they suck all the air out of the room sometimes, but they also like give it back, in the intense passion and love that his mom had for his movies is beautiful. And I don't know, all that emoting can make you feel really supported, even if sometimes it leaves you in the dust.
I feel like this video could turn into a therapy session just talking about her mom.
Yeah.
And how we can all relate to it.
Yes.
The quotes, I mean, going back to the beginning of his career, he gushed about his mom and how she was the biggest supporter of his career. Yeah. His dad, not so much. And he had a rocky relationship with his dad basically up until the 90s. Like, at the end of the movie, Paul Dano says, like, maybe it's my fault. I should have stamped this out, earlier when I could. Yeah. And it's like his dad was still kind of saying stuff like that to the press, like Raiders of the Lost Ark opens up and he's like, yeah, I guess he made this movie. Whoa.
Well, and he was still, like you said, in the 90s trying to get his dad's approval. He specifically made Saving Private Ryan for his dad.
Yeah.
And so even then he was still trying to get approval from his dad.
Well, apparently that is the time when they had they reconciled and became really close. So he wins Best Director for Saving Private Ryan. He immediately stands up and hugs his father and then goes to the stage and thanks his father. It's like his dad never understood movies, but he served in the Second World War. They would talk about it. That was his connection to him. That's why he's made so many World War II movies. Yeah. It's like, if I can just get maybe my dad will be interested in this movie if I make Empire of the Sun.
Well, just to call it a hobby and to keep calling it a hobby, but when you're spending tens of thousands of hours on something and you're doing it better than a hobbyist would, and you're making something special, and like your own parent can't see it, how frustrating that this is valid too. That why do we go to the movies? Why do movie stars exist and writers and directors? And if that's not a profession,
and like the way his dad is talking about, like, I do real things, I build computers and circuits and stuff. It's like, that's what he does too.
Right.
You're so blind to how similar it is. But I think that one reason I love the ending scene with David Lynch and the thing with the horizons is Sammy Fabelman at that point actually is still kind of thinking movies the way his dad does, which is thinking of it in terms of technical achievement.
Yeah. Right.
And David Lynch as John Ford is like, no, we can all do that shit. What are you trying to say? What are you doing with it? Why is the horizon here interesting, but in the middle, Why is it boring?
Figure
Figure that out.
It's interesting for on an emotional level, like, and I think it's so awesome. Like, you don't expect this side story of him in school and him making this senior ditch day movie, and it's right after something horrible happens to him. But like, he sees in real time what his framing of things can do, that he can get back a bully by showing what he feels is the real him, and he can tear apart two friends by showing one how they're so different from the one that they stick themselves to. And it just, the power, he's a short guy, he's a Jewish person in a non-Jewish place, but he can have your balls in his hand if you give him 10 minutes of fucking footage.
And in this way that like this big tough guy like can't even put words to.
I mean,
I love that. I love that scene with the bully
and the short little mean guy. Like, they all end up believing it. I mean, except for like, you see some real like depth in the jock, because he immediately realizes Steven put on screen what people see him as, and that's not what he sees him as. And the bully is like, "Why'd you tell him?" Like, he made the bully see exactly what he already thought of himself.
Yes.
Yeah, and I can even relate to that. Is people. Like I've in the past I've shot things with friends, and then they watch and are like, wait, am I really like that?
Right. Right.
Because they, you don't think of yourself as that until you see yourself actually doing that. Kind of the old saying, look yourself in the mirror. And so Spielberg used that as his weapon to protect himself and to get back at the bullies. And also to try to make friends with the bullies, to turn them around to actually be friends, not enemies.
But what I love about the thing with the bully is I think also, though, he doesn't actually know why he made the bully look so good. And I think he says, maybe I was just trying to make the best movie. And that could also be part of it. He's like, I hate this guy personally, but he's got the juice.
But I don't
he's
think
got the riz.
I don't think he hates that guy. I think all along they're peppering it with little signs that this guy is only being taken down by this really toxic person.
Well, yeah, okay.
I mean, that we're watching the story and then we watch him tell it with a movie in the movie. And it's like, he shows you in just a few minutes the power that he has to see people accurately, or see people in a way that he can convince an audience of a person's character.
Yeah,
with storytelling.
I'll say one thing with my personal experience. I would film weddings and events, like to actually make money and put bread on the table. And my sister-in-law was helping me film a wedding, and I would film like guests watching and things like that. And afterwards, my sister-in-law, she was filming stuff, and she noticed something between two people, how they looked at each other, two single people, and how they looked at each other. And she said, "Did you notice that?" And I said, "No." And she said, "You can see much clearer in the lens of a camera than you can just looking around." Meaning that if I didn't see it, and I was looking at the same people, but she saw the type of look that they were giving each other through the lens of the camera. And so that just goes back to the power of what we were talking about, the power of the camera, the power of the lens, that it makes people see themselves differently than they could, or makes you see them differently than they are.
Because it's washing away the noise, right? And at any given moment, there's a million things you could focus on in the room. But when you've got a director who knows what he wants you to see, and even what he wants you to see on just one person, with those, you just see the beginnings of all the way he shoots things, like from the ground up or from over the shoulder, or is it the perspective of the person? Am I the fly on the wall? All those things are storytelling choices, not gimmicks in the right hand.
Right, exactly.
All right, let's try to. We're all over the place, so let's try to go through the plot a little bit. We've kind of, but
we've really covered it, though. I think that's what's so good about the simplicity of the story.
But let's just some individual things. I mean, the way the movie opens. Again, if you told me this movie opens with a little bitty baby, adorable Steven Spielberg going to see a movie for the first time, you assume he's going to be enchanted and blown away by the power of the movies, and he goes to see Cecil B. DeMille's The Greatest Show on Earth. Have you ever seen this movie, Paul?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it. I watched it one time in high school. I started watching it last night and then turned it off because it's kind of boring. But I did note the opening narration, which is done by Cecil B. DeMille. He's like, the circus, the wonder of the circus. But then he says, the circus is a massive machine whose very life depends on discipline, motion, and speed. A mechanized army on wheels that rolls over any obstacle in its path, that meets calamity again and again, but always comes up smiling. It's like, oh, that's movies. That's movies, right? That's what this movies as a job is what this is all leading to. But I love that he sees the movie and he sees the train crash and he's like scared and kind of like overwhelmed by it. It's not like he leaves enchanted by it.
And it's a brain worm, right? It's like First Encounters. The way Richard Dreyfuss and the other characters get this, like, if something's implanted, and I have to just do it. I have to see it. I have to make it. I have to make a replica of this so I can watch it over and over again, and it loses its power, but I also maintain its power.
Yeah. And we, like, our 8-year-old son, he recreates scenes from movies and TV shows all the time. Like, we'll hear him talking in the other room and realize, he's on that scene now.
Cool.
He's nonverbal and on the spectrum, but he can recite, something he's studied over and over again. It sticks for a reason, and I always find it so fascinating to understand all at once. Like, oh, you're saying that scene because it's it's in his sing-songy kind of.
Right. So I can also relate to that scene because when I was younger, back in the 80s, movies, you had PG or R-rated in the early 80s before the PG-13 came. So you had movies like Gremlins, all these horror movies that were PG rated that we would see way too young,
right?
And would freak us out to the point where after I saw Gremlins, I would go to bed and put the sheets over my head because I was scared, thinking that a Gremlin was going to come in and get me.
Right.
But at the same time, I was laying there thinking, why did that scare me?
Mm-hmm.
Why? What? And then I started thinking, what is it about that scene, of how they made that scene, that scared me? And so I was kind of relating to that with Spielberg when he was a kid, showing him laying in bed, thinking about that train scene. But yet he was also thinking, well, wait a minute. Why was it like this? How did they make it scary where it's ingrained in my head now? And I have to go create this. I have to go create this for myself to see how exactly it was made and why it was scary. And that's a part I completely related to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Joe Dante would love to hear you say that about Gremlins. That scared the shit out of you, but also you lay in bed thinking, how did they do that?
Exactly.
But that is like that is the perfect movie. Like, and it's one of the movies that led to the PG-13 rating, is like this beautiful little magical fairy tale that then turns into this horrifying thing. And I remember taking my sister, who I'm a lot older than my sister, when she was 8 years old. We went to the movie theater to see The Amazing Spider-Man in 2012. And she didn't really want to go, but I wanted to see the movie and I had to babysit her. So I was like, it's Spider-Man. What? It's not going to be scary. And she's like, it's scary. And then we watched the movie and it's scary scene after scary scene because suddenly I'm seeing it through an 8-year-old's eyes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's just a PG-13 movie. They're all the same, but no, to a little child, they are terrifying. But Laci, I love what you said about Close Encounters. Like, he gets it implanted in his head and now has the compulsion to just make it happen in front of him.
Right. He needs to relive it and understand why it's like it's gripped him in such a way. Like, he's not going to feel good until he gets it out.
I know we're kind of going all over the place with this video and probably going off the rails just a little bit, but an example is back in the day when we would watch horror movies like Jason, those type of horror movies. We wanted to know what it was like and how to make those movies. So me and Simon made a horror movie called The Plunging Maniac, where the weapon was toilet plunger.
It's a plunger, yeah. And now there's a man who can use what he's got.
Right. And so what we did is we shot a scene it looked so cool. We shot a scene, a wide shot, way in the back, and we shut the blinds to our patio door, but we had the light on from above, and so you just see the silhouette in front of it, and then we hold up the plunger, and you can't really make out what it is, but he has something. And it was just a really cool shot. And And so that just goes back to what I was saying is that when we were younger, we saw things that scared us, but at the same time, we want to know how it worked.
Yeah,
Why did it scare us?
And you take some power back, which makes sense for someone like Steven. I mean, or for any kid, but like to be the one that makes the scary thing, because we do know that he loved to harass and terrorize his little sisters.
Yeah, all the time.
And we see like they're in line for the movies, and he's never seen a movie in a theater before. This is in the 50s.
It's very Batman.
It is Batman, yeah. But his parents, you see the two different approaches to life. His dad's like, here's what a movie is. It's 24 frames per second, persistence of vision. They play the frames back to back to back. And then his mom's like, movies are little dreams. You never wake up from a dream. And he is both of those people.
He is both of those people. Yeah.
So he gets a camera so that he can film the crash, and he gets
the train. He gets the train on. They show a little glimpse of how he's bummed that he's one of the only Jewish families in at least the neighborhood, and he wants Christmas lights, and they just laugh at him like, "Nah, we're Jewish, stupid," which I thought was so funny. But then they're like 8 days of presents, and then you're thinking he's going to get a camera, but they're all train shaped. So he asked for the train. And then he got the camera, and I just thought that was cute because they showed how the 8 days are good. It's a good build-up.
Yeah, you get a whole train set. So he gets his camera. He starts making movies. He's making movies with his sister where he's pulling a tooth out of their mouth and ketchup comes out, and then his mom comes in and sees the big mess she's making, and I like that she, instead of freaking out, she laughs. She's amused.
She's the mom from E.T.
She's the mom from E.T. who laughs when Elliot says penis breath. This mom is she's so much Dee Wallace from E.T. But they have to move. They move to Phoenix because Sammy's dad, Arnold, or is it Al? I get the real life names confused.
I don't know, Matt.
Paul Dano has a job. He's a big computer guy, and his best friend, Seth Rogen, is also a big computer guy, but not as big a computer guy. But they're going to move to Phoenix, and there's no choice. It's all in the betterment of his career. And the mom, you can tell she doesn't want this.
She doesn't want it until she knows the best friend's coming.
Right, but at first he's not coming.
Well, that's not what she said.
And sorry. Okay. But she feels out of control of her life, just like little Sammy does. But they move to Phoenix, and Benny goes with them. And there's a jump cut. Now Sammy is older, and he's played by Gabriel LaBelle, who plays him for the rest of the movie, and he's really, really wonderful.
He's so good.
Yeah, we basically have a little montage of him making movies with his Boy Scout troops. Again, you're like, yep, this is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. He's just all of his movies are in this movie.
Yeah,
which is another thing that Simon and I can relate to is making all those types of movies when we were younger, and and figuring out how to make movies while we were doing it. And
right, like how do I make that pop for the gun and the flash?
Yeah,
or whatever.
like he was trying to figure out. Okay, yeah, they're shooting their gun, but it's missing something. What's it missing? It's missing that impact, and so he gets the idea of poking holes in the negative in the film to get the flash, and that's the type of stuff that we used to do. Is things like that.
And he goes to the theater and sees The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, a John Ford movie, and then he then makes a movie very similar to that, and he's like at that stage where it's just like I'm just kind of recreating what I see on screen and figuring out how to do it on my own.
Right, but he knows that these things make him feel something, and he knows what he wants to produce needs to make somebody feel something. So his style of like getting right on top of the person who's about to do their scene and just like kind of getting them in that, okay, so here's what just happened, even though they just did it. Okay, what this means is all your men are dead, right? And so you are in charge, and just coaching out of this actor every moment. It is how he works with kid actors, at least, and I'm sure he can't help himself. He does it with adults. It's just such a nice touch.
I love that. That kid actor, once he directs him, I'm sad. Yeah, he's never even thought of something like this before.
Because he's not an actor, he's just a friend, right? He's like, so you want me to like act? Yeah, I want you to act.
What's funny is another thing that I could completely relate to is I believe there's one scene where Spielberg is telling a friend how he wants them to act or do the scene, and the friend doesn't get it. He doesn't
That's what I'm
understand
talking. Yeah.
it. And then Spielberg's just like, just do it, okay? Just trust me and do it. I've done the exact same thing where when we were younger, I would tell a friend, we're going to do this, act this way. And my friend's like, I don't want to do that. That's going to be stupid. How's that going to work? I'm like, just trust me. Just do it, okay? Just do it.
It's all in the editing, bitch.
And then they do it, and then they see what it looks like after I edit it and make the movie, and they're like, wow, that turned out a lot better than I thought it would.
Because you're holding the whole thing in your head, and they're
Yeah.
just seeing it piece by piece.
Exactly.
So
And
you would get your friends to act in your movies? I mean,
This is going to bewilder Matt because Matt didn't have friends.
well, this is when I watch this movie, I'm like, why are these kids going along with this? Who wants to do this? Was
what
it,
else you going to do on a weekend? There's no internet.
Was it fun for them? Did they like doing it?
our friends, it depended on the friend.
Right.
So I have two friends that actually became filmmakers too. And so they were into it because they kind of had the same similar
Right. They get the end result.
ideas and vision that we did. Other friends, they just went along with whatever. I guess I'm doing this type of attitude, but they didn't really care about it.
Everyone likes seeing themselves on camera looking interesting, though. So it's like you can not enjoy the ride, but like the end result. So you endure.
I remember a friend of ours, he was basically begging us. He's like, please don't make me look stupid. I don't want
Right.
to look stupid. Please don't make me look stupid. I'm like, why would I make you look stupid? Because if I make you look stupid, then the movie's going to look stupid.
Right.
I'm like, just trust me. You're going to be fine. And then he was surprised when he saw the end result.
Yep.
Because I've never made films, but I'm a musician. I was a musician since I was 13. I would go record music by myself. I started a band with my friends, but it was like I could involve friends if they got to participate in the band. The part that confuses me is like, how would I ever have gotten people to go just act in a movie where I'm the director?
It's all trust. I'm just now kind of realizing how much you need to trust a director to not use the
And
footage
that's
to make
hard.
you look like an idiot.
That's hard too, because there were times where we would butt heads with friends because they're like, well, why are you shooting it that way? Why don't we shoot it this way? Or I'd have a friend be like, we had a really good idea, cool idea that we probably stole from Spielberg, where we were shooting down upward. And we knew that it would look great on camera and in the movie. It would be a great shot. But he was like, why are you down there doing that?
It's like, shut
show
up,
a wide
bitch.
shot, and so we would butt heads once in a while with that because they clearly just didn't have the vision, didn't understand it. And that's the same thing with anybody, like you said with your music, friends probably just didn't have the full vision that you did. And so they couldn't understand what you were envisioning to happen.
They don't see the end.
And then when they see the end result, I'm sure majority of the time they were impressed by it.
No, not that part, but everything you said up until then was true.
That's not true, Matt.
Okay, Laci, you want to explain this sexy camping trip?
I did not know this movie was going to be good. And I didn't know that it was going to treat my brain correctly. So I'm still waiting for the mom to go fully off the fucking rails. So the camping trip was scary for me until...
It is scary.
It is. I mean, you're spending a lot of time with the mom, and you're seeing the full appeal of her and the danger and how much she needs and how little she's actually helping parent. It's all very selective. But he's making a movie the whole time. He's shooting different things. She's a character. But I don't know, I think the dad is talking about another move or something. She's already gone and laid down in a tent. And I think he's talking about once again moving, and she's clearly been drinking or something, and then decides to go out where everyone else is and just start dancing in her nightgown like a ballerina. It's so fucking weird, but people are dazzled by it.
She was no longer the center of attention. So she wanted to be the center of attention, and she also didn't want to hear about another move.
Right.
So she said, okay, I'm going to end this right now, and I'm going to go out and do this. And all the attention will be on me.
I think she also was trying to get Bernie to be more energized and to fight more to be part of that move. And that's why she kissed the husband in the most romantic way ever, in an inappropriate way ever. Right after she dances, she's trying to tell the uncle, look, bitch, You want me to move on? I need you to be part of this. I can't do it on my own.
I could twirl right out of this house now.
Right. But like, it just hurts the daughter begging her to
I
stop.
love that because it's embarrassing.
Of course
Now,
that's why it hurts.
She's so whimsical and Terrence Malick. And he's like, oh, the firefly.
Well, you're supposed to be modest, and she's not being modest.
Yeah.
I always thought that it was because she wasn't wearing anything underneath her see-through nightgown.
I think that's it, but I think it is
a silhouette.
It is that, but I think it is also like you don't. We live in a society. You don't behave like this,
right? And you've done this before. I can't trust these whimsy things. Sometimes you put us in danger. You know, like the older two kids are in a parental role too, because the dad is so busy with work, and the mom is dangerous sometimes, even if she's lovable. So, you know, you can't help when that adult role kicks in. And that's what the sister was doing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to protect you from what's clearly different about your brain.
Yeah.
Can you just be normal?
Right. Right.
Then her mom dies. And because of that, Judd Hirsch, her uncle, comes in, who is a circus man. And he's like, he comes
It's also in film.
Well, yes, but he starts talking to little Sammy about you have art within you. You have the urge. It's going to tear you apart, but it's all that you can ever do. And he's using the circus as the metaphor for movies, just like the beginning of the movie. And this is just a great little, basically 2-scene performance from Judd Hirsch. He got an Oscar nomination for it.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. But it makes sense that he's her uncle. Like, she's a lot. This family's a lot.
Yeah, it is my favorite scene of the whole movie.
Yeah.
The kitchen table one or the bedroom?
Scene between Judd Hirsch and Steven Spielberg talking to each other. It's my favorite scene in the movie, and he's basically saying it's inevitable. The art is going to tear you apart from your family, and it's going to happen. It's inevitable. And he's saying, no, it won't.
Yeah.
But that is what happens.
Because it's an obsession. Because it's not a healthy attachment, and someone healthily attached to making a movie wouldn't make a good one.
Well, but it's also like, I think that it's to non-artistic people. They're like, but I don't get why it's so important to you.
Well,
in a way that I could never explain to you why it is.
That's why he had to marry an actor, because anyone else would be like his dad, who's just like, I don't get it.
All for a hobby?
Right.
Well, that's a lot of reasons why actors and producers and directors marry people in the industry, because who else is going to understand the passion and the obsession they have? Right.
And the time and the late hours and the weird schedules and the travel and the kissing of people that aren't your spouse.
Yeah. At least that.
Which Spielberg could not handle.
Right.
Because he did not let his wife act in another movie.
Made Kate Capshaw retire.
Yeah.
But at least at that point, it's a job. I mean, all of us do creative things out of the love for it. But, doing giant, like as a musician playing shows, takes a ton of time. It's expensive. There's not actually any reward other than just doing it and playing for the two people you brought with you. So it's kind of hard to explain to people who don't get it why it's important or why it matters. Judd Hirsch, the same year, he played Michelle Williams' father in the movie Showing Up, and then he plays her uncle in this movie. Kind of interesting.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I thought he did a great job.
He's so good.
It was my favorite scene, but also my favorite performance of the movie was Judd Hirsch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need him not in his boxers. That just kept waiting for his wiener to come out. But besides that, it was great.
I'm not imagining that. Sorry.
I don't know how boxers work. I just kept waiting for it to peek out.
That was in the unrated cut, the Too Hot for School, Too Cool for School edition.
Okay.
It's the Fabelmans After Midnight.
Mm-hmm. The Fabelman's little man.
The dad asks Sammy to edit because she's really sad about her mom dying, and he's like, I can't talk to this woman. She's so sad, and I can't make her feel better. I've tried everything. Feel better, honey. There. It's not working. So can you edit together the footage of our camping trip and make a movie? And he does, and this is when he discovers that his mom is in love with Benny. Mm-hmm. And he holds this secret deep within his heart. For
weeks, at least.
and I love the scene where she like forces him to tell her why he's being so mean to him. I feel so terrible for her at that moment because she has no idea. And she might not even know that like there's actually a thing going on with Benny. That this might be the camera discovering something that she didn't even know was going on.
The real life story makes it all seem a bit, I mean, because there's not a moment like this in real life.
Yeah.
Right.
The real life story was clear. Like it said, like they'd lay down in sleeping bags and she'd hold her husband's hand on one side and Bernie's hand on the other. So it's like she knew, but in this movie, maybe she didn't know or didn't understand. Or know
that it was showing.
Yeah. Or I have a crush on him. I like him a lot. I didn't know that.
But it's under control.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know that we look deeply into each other's eyes and stuff.
That's that scene where he's watching the footage and Seth Rogen starts putting his arm around her waist and she
swats it away.
Swats it away. Yeah. So she knew, but she didn't think it was visible. She didn't think other people actually could see it.
So he finally tells his mom. It's a heartbreaking scene. She cries and please don't tell your father. I won't tell. Or no, I don't think she asks him not to tell. He
volunteers it. Yeah,
I won't tell. And Spielberg has said like this whole movie is about the moment when you start seeing your parents as people rather than your parents, and that's what this scene is he was so mad at his mom until suddenly he saw her crying like this, and all of a sudden it became no, I get it. I get it. I will help you.
Yeah.
And they move to Northern California without Benny. And on the way, she is sad and has to pull over just to do some twirling by herself for a little while. And then Sammy comes out to comfort her, and she, they have a little talk, and she says, "I'm still your mom," which is just like Richard Dreyfuss in Close Encounters when he's making his potato sculpture, and he's like, "Something's wrong with Dad, but I'm still Dad." I'm still dead. Like all this stuff has been in Spielberg's brain for 50 years.
Yeah. It's why he was so able to so accurately direct two people essentially having a manic episode for weeks in Close Encounters. He knows what that looks like.
You're right.
To be possessed by a feeling.
So at his new school, he experiences some anti-Semitic bullying, which really did happen to him. And again, the McBride book does a really good job of reporting this and on talking to the people who were involved in it and kind of like hear their denials without understanding that. Because they would talk to people like, we don't have a problem with anti-Semitism.
Unless you're Jewish.
But it was like they were just being mean to him because he was Jewish. But if he wasn't Jewish, they would still be mean to him.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, that's still a problem. That's still anti-Semitism, but okay. I thought this was so well observed by Spielberg when Sammy is getting when the bullies basically start like accosting him and yelling at him and like you can like see him trying to calculate what to say to like diffuse the situation or just get out of here. And like I felt that all the time when I was in high school, like just being at a loss for words because I can't come up with what the perfect thing to say to get out of this situation.
Yeah. But knowing your words are the only thing you got.
Yes.
I'm not going to fight this person. I don't know how.
Right. And I was never beaten up. He is, and he's super miserable here. It's different from Phoenix. In Phoenix, they stood out less, but now he has this awareness of himself as a Jewish person. And then the girls become aware of that he's a Jewish person, but this one particular girl, Monica, she's into it.
Because God was Jewish. Or Jesus was.
She loves Jesus, and Jesus was Jewish. Therefore,
but Jesus turns her on.
Yes, it's so great, Monica.
It's also the age that they're at too.
Oh yeah,
they're rebellious.
And,
and you're afraid of sinning, so you have to wrap it. It's just your puberty and your like religious thing that's keeping you pure in your head, or like intertwining in a weird way, and you're just like, let's just pray a lot. Can we pray? What if we prayed with our mouths? Right? It's just so perfect and weird.
Sammy is at this point, he's changed his name to Sam. Everybody needs to call him Sam. Steven Spielberg was Stevie as a kid, Steve as a teenager and a young adult, and then eventually Steven. He's doing the same thing in the movie.
Mm-hmm. So this guy's going to become
He's going to become Samuel.
Oh, right. Sorry.
They move into their new house, and there's literally one scene of the parents moving into the house and pretending to be happy, and then they announce they're getting a divorce.
I love the sisters in this movie.
Yeah, I didn't really notice them the first time, but they're so good,
They're
especially
so
the oldest
good.
one,
Yeah.
who's playing his real life sister.
Who becomes a director, right? Or a
Screenwriter. She
screenwriter.
wrote Big.
Yeah.
She's very successful, and this has happened at the same time that he's filmed the Ditch Day footage for his high school. With Ditch Day, was this a thing?
Yes.
Anybody knows about Ditch Day?
Yeah.
I didn't know what this was.
You wouldn't have been invited.
Oh,
It was senior skip day at my school.
Yeah, it was a skip day.
And you have a party.
but it seems like it's sanctioned by the school.
It is. They let you skip.
Well, that's like when the government says we've set up free speech zones. Like what?
No, they don't hassle you about it. They understand all the seniors are going to skip, so they just do it.
It's like in my school, at least, it was like an unspoken rule. Like you have
Right.
to skip
It's a rite of
the
passage.
ditch day, and you don't say anything to anybody about it, and the teachers and principal just let you do it.
Exactly.
And because it was like an unwritten rule almost.
It's a gift to the seniors. You're senior, you get to do this. And
Right.
for some reason, you don't just go home, you spend it together. And that's what happened in my high school too.
Well, then maybe my high school did have it, and right there is why I wouldn't have been involved.
Yeah,
in it.
you were just at home with
Yeah,
your
I
fucking
went home and
Siskel and
watched-
Ebert
watched
review
Deep-
of
watched-
something.
The Incredibles on DVD. So there's the scene with Sammy and his sister as she's saying like, you're just like her, you're so selfish, and he's like, shut up, I want to edit, but will you watch with me? Very sweet. Then it's the prom. He airs his footage. Well, first he tells his girlfriend like, hey, I love you, will you be my wife forever? And she's like, ew, no. But he's just doing that because his parents announced they're getting
Right.
divorced. He's all emotional. They play his movie. It is a big hit. I think it's the most interesting scene in the movie with the bully. I mean, we already talked about it. The bully not understanding what he's watching, and even Sammy not really having the words. They're just dumb teenage boys who don't know how to talk or have emotions anyway.
But don't you think he is also realizing the power of editing something like this while he's feeling really emotional?
Yes,
You know,
yes.
like he surprises himself, but because he has such a heavy heart, or was just, I don't know. I think it's just probably
I think he already knew he had the power because of editing that camping trip. But
Sure, but he
used-
just had a
but-
more emotional story to
Yeah.
tell. What came out the other end was something full of emotion, and it didn't have
he
to.
used the bully really in the movie as a hero, right? If I remember
Yeah.
right.
Well, it's
Yeah.
the lighter bully that he turned into a hero to turn him against the real bully, so they would be separate.
I don't think there's that much agency in it. I think that he doesn't know why he's
Yeah,
doing it. And
I
I think
know.
that's what the point of the John Ford scene is. You have to figure out why you're doing what you're doing.
Because you clearly can, and your emotions are going to seep into this movie. And you might have one goal for this movie, catch me if you can, but if you're very emotional while you're doing it, it's going to come out the other end different, which he thinks he's telling a cat and mouse story with Catch Me If You Can, but it's actually more heartbreaking than that, because he keeps letting in these things maybe he hasn't totally dealt with, which
Yeah.
made the movie great, but it's not what he thought he was making, because he
Yeah.
can't help but tell about himself. He's
Yeah.
selfish like his mom, but he's a good storyteller, so we don't care. I
Yeah.
relate to this man.
Right.
And like the bully confronts him. Why'd you make me look like that? And he like starts crying. And I love that.
I love that.
This scene is like they're not speaking in like John Hughes dialogue. They're
They
speaking.
so easily could have.
Yes, they're
Yeah.
like talking like real teenage
Adults.
boys. They're talking like teenage boys who don't have language for it's also the 60s, who don't have language for the complex emotions and hormones that they're feeling. And eventually he's like, just don't tell anyone I cried. And he's like, I never will unless I make a movie about it.
Well,
and that's
'cause-
this movie.
Because this jock knows exactly what he looks like, the privilege that he's got, the things that his parents expect of him, the things the school expects of him. Being popular isn't as fun as people think it is, because all you can do is fail at it. So he's already trying to live up to this image and feeling fully like an imposter. And then Steven goes and makes him look like a goddamn god. And he's like, now nobody's going to let me be normal.
Yeah.
And so now crying cannot exist. I need to now achieve something. I guess I need to be an Olympic athlete. Fuck. Thank you, Steven.
And like you said, like he knew already, or he suspected, like, I'm not that guy. I know I'm not that guy.
Well, any
and he just
popular-
made it so clear.
Any
Yeah.
popular guy like that knows that, unless they're a sociopath. It's people are in love with an idea that they think they know about your life, and your life isn't this way. And now everyone's going to really make it a further gap between everybody. Don't worry, you're a senior. You're leaving.
Yeah. Exactly.
He comes home from prom. He has a nice little conversation with the mom. The mom
and prom
explains why, I'm doing this divorce. I mean, this is the 60s.
I'm going to do a divorce.
I'm going to do one of those divorces people are starting to do. And, in the next 10 years or so, divorce will become ubiquitous. But at this point, it's a very bold thing to do for like the mother of a family to split apart her family, to go do something that you could say is selfish, but she makes it clear, like, I have to do this so that I can be the best person for everybody.
Right.
I need to be my truest self so that I can be happy and be the mom that you deserve. And
so relatable.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we have, it's now a year later. His dad has moved to LA. He's going to college in LA. He's not going to film school. He's doing what his dad wants him to do. But he goes to his dad's apartment and he's like having a panic attack because he hates school and he thinks everything's going wrong. And then his dad gives him this letter. This studio wrote you a letter, son. Come work at our studio or whatever.
Because he's responding the way his mom did when she did the right thing. I need to move to California. That's the right thing. And the way she is sensitive and buys a monkey and is having crazy, depressive episodes. And now the son, when Spielberg tries to fit his square peg in a round hole, his body rebels against him.
Yeah. Yes, that's a great way to put it.
I know.
Well, shut up. It's not a good way to put it. Okay, there's basically just the ending of the movie, which is the best ending of any movie ever. He goes to the lot. He gets a letter from CBS, but he goes to the Universal lot. Was CBS on the Universal lot? Paul, do you know the answer to this?
Is he telling the future? Aren't they? Don't they own?
No, they're not. They're not.
Well, a lot of different studios
NBC.
share the same lot. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, it could have been.
And he's meeting with Greg Grunberg, and he's like, "Oh, who you got to meet, kid, is the greatest director of American pictures ever." And he's like, "Huh?" So he goes to meet John Ford. Had you heard Spielberg tell this story before you saw this movie, Paul?
No.
So I've heard him tell it multiple times. There's videos of him telling it at different points over the years, and it changes kind of each time.
I remember. I don't know if I remember. I remember him saying that he met a director they talked to, but I don't remember him saying it was John Ford. So I don't know. This might be just my memory.
The way he tells it is exactly what happens. I mean, a lot of the weird details, like John Ford marches into the office with lipstick kiss marks on his face, and then his assistant runs after him to wipe off his face.
Impropriety.
And then says, "You can go in there. You've got 5 minutes." Probably more like 1. And he goes in there. Well, before in like American film culture, people understood that directors were the ones who actually made the movies.
Oh, no wonder he was cranky.
But he was like one of the only ones where it was like, he seems to really do something though.
He has a style.
John
He has a
Ford.
signature. Yeah.
Yes.
And an eye patch. The eye patch didn't fucking hurt.
But his attitude about himself was like, I just go there, I point the camera, I do the thing. I don't know.
He's Spielberg.
Well,
That's what he says about himself. No, George was doing it. I was just there to back him up.
He did it in a very crusty, old-fashioned way, which is like, I don't know, if I worked on an electrical line, I'd do the same thing. But he goes in, and this is the most intimidating man in the world, and he's played by David Lynch. And this is just unending delight that he's played by David Lynch, who's like a very John Ford character, although they look very similar.
Well, I don't know. Then again, have you seen behind the scenes footage of how he reacts to people?
Well, I just meant in terms of his personality, or I see Lynch as like the consummate auteur and John Ford is like the ultimate studio man. Like, just shoot the story that's in front of you. But they do have similar energies. Anyway, he goes in. John Ford takes 10 minutes to light a cigar, and then he's like, "Oh, they say you want to be a picture maker, huh? Why?
Where's your eye patch?
Why do you want to do that?"
You have to look and sound like a pirate.
And he's like, "Well, I just love your movies." Shut up.
Fuck you.
What do you know about art? And he goes and he looks at the painting, and he's like, "Tell me about it." And he's like, "Well, it's got some cowboys and they look to be having a fight." No.
No. What are you, Lincoln?
Yes. He gives him the lesson. The horizon, that's what it's about. If you know why the horizon being at the top or the bottom of the frame is interesting, maybe you can make a good movie. Get the fuck out of my office.
Right. And that's all he needed.
Spielberg Lynch originally turned this down, so Steven Spielberg enlisted Laura Dern to go persuade him, and she did. And then the next shot is the last scene of the movie. He like steps out and into this artificial looking backlot, walks away down this alley, and suddenly the camera very awkwardly jerks up to make the horizon at the bottom of the frame.
It is hopeful. Just on the street right there, it looks pedestrian and literally, and it almost looks sad or like something menacing is going to happen, like he's going somewhere that we need to see. You pointed at the horizon, he's going somewhere we don't need to see because he's going to be okay.
It's also this movie about movies. It's now suddenly Spielberg. He never does this with his camera. Does something like that calls attention to it, like
Break the fourth wall.
This is basically breaking the fourth wall. Like, you're watching a movie. I know it seems like it's my life, but it's still a movie. And he said his original idea was you would literally hear Spielberg yell "cut." But I like this much better.
Yeah, I like it much better too because you notice it, but not every single person would understand what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also set up and payoff.
Yes.
Right.
Talking about the horizon, and then you realize, well, wait a minute.
But what is the difference?
Whoop,
Right.
Let's dip it up.
It's like he literally, wait a minute, what's that scene I just shot? Oh, right, shit.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's the movie.
All right,
and let's
gotta
go around with our
go.
final thoughts. What's your star rating?
5 stars.
5 stars.
Now.
You love it?
The fuck? Yes, I love it.
All right.
You need me to marry it? I'm married to you. Give me a divorce. All right, bye, Paul.
Okay, bye,
Okay,
Laci.
I love you. Goodbye.
Okay, bye, Laci.
All right.
Okay. That was great. All right, Paul, now we can say what we really feel.
So I would give Fabelmans a 4 out of 5.
Mm-hmm.
Like, honestly, it's not my favorite Spielberg movie, but it's the most relatable movie because of him being a filmmaker and showing everything that he went through as a filmmaker. So it's relatable to me, but I honestly don't think it's his best movie he's made.
4 out of 5, but yeah, it's just based on what everything you said about like your personal history. It's like they made a movie about you. Except you never discovered a secret romance while you were editing a film, but other than that,
yeah. And my parents never got divorced, and the filmmaking aspect was a lot like us, me and my brothers.
yeah.
But
You must think like if you got to grow up in the 2010s or grow up right now, the tools you would have at your disposal.
oh, I think about it all the time. I'm like, I should send you the footage of that scene that we put together. I talked about in the beginning of this video, because it's like, and we think about that, like, man, if we had back then what we have today, this would look so much better and it would look so cool. But at the same time, I also think about, but everyone else is doing it too.
Mm-hmm.
When back then, there wasn't very many people doing it because it was hard to do.
Well, in one way, it's like back then, you're people like Spielberg who are like destined to do this because they love it so much and they're so gifted at it. They're gonna figure out how to do it. But he happened to grow up in a family that could afford to buy cameras and stuff. And what if he didn't? Or what if he lived in a different country? Or what if he just lived in a poor part of town? Or what if he wasn't white? Like, so it's not. I think now there is a little more. It is a little more democratic, but that means there's a lot more people trying to do it.
Yeah.
I think about that with music. Even if I knew how to record music when I was, 16, what could have been? But
right.
Okay, so you give it 4.
It's kind of like it's just kind of like anybody can. It was the technology now. Anybody can make a movie, and I hear that all the time. Well, you can make a movie with your phone. Well, yes, but can it be good? That's the question. Is it good or is it great? You can't just pick up your phone and start pointing and shooting. It's like anything. You either have it or you don't.
Mm-hmm.
And if you try to force yourself to have it, then it's not going to work. It's not going to be good. Just like with you and music. I mean, I can't play an instrument at all, but if I tried to force myself to, it's probably not going to work out or sound as good as someone like yourself that loves music and creates music. And because so that's the same thing as like with a filmmaker, and I've also noticed this with friends. like I've noticed the type personality. Like this friend, you know what? He's not a director. He's more of a producer. This friend, he's an actor, not a director. So you have that aspects as well too. What are you? Are you a writer, producer, director, actor? And so when I think about people who want to get into filmmaking, that's one thing I always say is, yeah, try to fine tune your skills, but also figure out where you belong in that field, because not everybody can be a director. Not everybody has an visual eye for direction.
Yeah, you look into producers, some of the most successful producers, and they're like, I went to film school. I made movies with my friends when I was a teenager. Basically, I thought I was going to be a director. I thought that I was what I was destined for, and then realized this is what I'm actually good at.
Then you see a producer trying to direct a movie, and it's not good. It's not very good.
You don't think Congo is one of the best films of the 90s?
There's a reason why Spielberg didn't even want to touch that movie. I'll say that, because he was offered that movie and he turned it down. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, and then yeah, so it's just one of the things where it's like you either have it or you don't. And so, like I said, I give it a 4 out of 5. I don't think it's his best movie, but it's the most relatable movie to me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I give it 5 out of 5. I love it. I love it way more than I did the first time, and I loved it the first time I saw it. It's one of my favorite films of his, and I'm honestly just grateful that at this age he's still making just top-notch movies. And we're lucky that he's still doing it and still interested and still super engaged. And may he never go back to making Ready Player One and the BFG, and just keep doing stuff like this, please.
It's kind of like when I hear people hem-haw about Spielberg, he's not as good as he used to be, or things like that. I always say, well, think about it. Do you know any other director that has made a movie in every single genre and it be good? I can't think of anyone. Usually directors will stick in one type of genre, and if they venture out of it, it doesn't turn out great. And Spielberg, horror, western, musical, he's done it all, and they've all turned out great.
The only thing he can't do, I think, is comedy. I don't mean he's made funny movies, but I don't think he's made a successful movie that in the video store would be in the comedy section.
He tried and miserably failed.
Yes.
And,
but try it again. He should try it again.
Yeah, I think he realized that he's not a comedy director.
Yeah.
He can put comedy moments in his films, but as an actual comedy, it's just not his. And he knows where his wheelhouse is.
It's really it's hard to explain to people how unpleasant I find 1941 with how just there's the energy in that is just so all over the place. It's so clear that this director doesn't know how to make a comedy and how uncomfortable that is to watch. And they're like, well, how bad could it be? Like, just try it. Just watch it. It's very uncomfortable. You'll not feel good about yourself watching it. Yeah.
I mean, I own it though.
Well, I own it too.
And I watched the extended cut. Yeah. I mean, I have Steven Spielberg is one of those directors that I have that is probably one of the only directors I have every single movie of his. And I'm not a fan of musicals. I honestly really dislike musicals because they take me out of the movie. You're in this dramatic scene, you're in this moment, and then all of a sudden they start singing, and I'm like, oh, I'm watching a movie. It just doesn't, I'm just not into it. The only reason I actually went to go see West Side Story is because Spielberg directed it. So, yeah, I mean, Spielberg has been a huge part of me and Simon's lives as filmmakers, and really the biggest inspiration of us being a filmmaker. And
did you like West Side Story?
I like the dramatic moments, not the singing.
All right, I gotta get you musical pilled. Musicals are great.
I sat there in the theater wishing I had a remote that I could fast forward in the singing.
That's so weird.
I own it, and I fast forward in the singing all the time.
I would do that when I was a kid, or when I would watch Grease or something. I would fast forward through the songs, which is like, it's a musical. The point is to watch the songs. Man. Yeah,
but it just takes me completely out of the movie. Like La La Land. People thought I would love that movie because it's about Hollywood and filmmaking, and I hated that movie.
Yeah.
Like the part opening scene where they're in the traffic jam and all of a sudden everybody gets out and starts singing. And
You've never done that?
No, and I've never seen that happen before.
Oh, it happens once, twice a week over here.
You
Okay.
do that.
Paul and Twin Flicks. One, thank you so much for giving so much of your time today talking about the Fabelmans, and it was a great time talking with you about this movie. Can you tell everybody one more time about your channel, Twin Flicks, and what it is you do?
So we over at Twin Flicks, we mainly do 4K versus Blu-ray comparisons, where we take images, pull images from the 4K disc and a Blu-ray disc, and then we put them side by side and compare them. And then just talk about the improvements, the differences, why one looks different than the other, and if we recommend it or not. And then, but I also do live shows as well. Mm-hmm. That you and Laci were on one of our shows, and so I try to do that once a week, just a live show, bring on people that love physical media, or I bring in people from the industry, and we just sit back and talk about movies and physical media.
Yeah.
So yeah, I enjoy it. It's a lot of fun.
Load Bearing Beams listeners or just fans, go to Paul's channel and go to the live tab. You can see the episode that Laci and I were on. That'd be a good place to start. You can see what Paul's all about and get a sense of the thing, and then you'll be hooked
instantly. Yeah, and you guys can find me on social media, X, Twitter, TikTok, and I think it's Paul_TwinFlix for all the social medias.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, as for us, next week we'll be off for our regular episode, but we're going to put out the audio recording of our YouTube live where we're doing our Spielberg wrap up. So that'll be our episode for August 30th. Again, we're not having a regular episode that week, but the week after that, September 6th, we're coming back. The Summer of Spielberg is over. Now it's the fall of normal movies. And I'm looking at my notes and seeing we're covering the movie Drumline. This is Laci's pick. This is a movie about high school band drummers, I believe.
We go from one of the kings of Hollywood, masterful directors, to Drumline.
I forgot who directed Drumline. Hold on one moment.
Yeah, I've never seen the movie, so I don't know if it's good or bad. But
this would be Charles Stone III, of course, a.k.a. Chuck. And he also directed Drumline, A New Beat, of course. And
everybody knows Chuck.
Let's see. Oh, he directed the Bernie Mac vehicle, Mr. 3000. He directed Uncle Drew with Kyrie Irving. But it seems like he's mainly a TV director, Friday Night Lights, a lot of stuff like that. Anyway, I've always heard this movie's actually pretty good. I'm excited to watch it. I played the snare drum in a high school band for a little while, so I don't know. But that's episode 127, September 6th. And other than that, please do tell a friend about the podcast about Load Bearing Beams. We have a vast back catalog, 126 episodes on audio and video, and we are on social media. Matt Stokes 9 on Twitter, Load Bearing Pod on Twitter, Load.Bearing.Beams on TikTok, Matt Stokes 9 on TikTok, Load Bearing Beams on Instagram. I'm on Letterboxd at Matt Stokes 9. Laci is Load Bearing Laci on Instagram, and my band does the music for Load Bearing Beams. Rural Route 9 is the name of the band, and we do the song that you're hearing right now and all the interstitial music, plus the Summer of Spielberg theme song. And once again, thank you so much to Wade Hemel and TJ Behrens for helping us make that song and making our theme song for the Summer of Spielberg. So that's all I got. Paul?
Let me ask one question before we leave,
yes,
if you don't mind.
Yes.
If someone's never seen a Spielberg movie, what's the one movie that you would choose for them to start out with? Good
question. I guess I would just say Jurassic Park. I feel like that's the safest bet. And I think, so my favorite is Jaws. My favorite movie period is Jaws.
Yeah.
But the one that I'd feel like best, like you're going to have a great time with this, is Jurassic Park. What would you say?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That or Indiana Jones.
Which one, though?
It depends. I guess, honestly, it would depend on the age. If it was a younger person, I would probably say Last Crusade. If it was an older person, I would say Raiders.
Mm-hmm. See, it's not an easy question. Yeah, because even super young, Jurassic Park's kind of scary. But I think so. Our Jurassic Park episode is by far our most listened to episode, and if you can interpolate like the popularity of a movie to how popular our episodes are, like we've done episodes on Star Wars, and this blew it away. Wow. I think Jurassic Park is actually, like, for our generation, maybe the most popular movie.
Yeah, which makes sense. Yeah, it definitely. Yeah, I remember I was 15 years old when I came out, and lines around the block, like literally around the block with that movie. Yeah.
I didn't get to see it. I saw it on VHS. I was like 7. I was hiding in the kitchen from the Velociraptors, but like little Sammy, I couldn't stop thinking about him.
Jurassic Park is one of those movies where I would say I wish I could watch for the first time again.
Yeah, I wish I could see it in a theater. But that's what I think about every one of these movies. Like, we watched Close Encounters last week, and I was just like, God, to be in a theater in 1977 and not know what's going to happen in this movie.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Well, it was great. It was great being on the show.
Yes.
Talking about Spielberg. Like I said, anytime I get a chance, I always want to talk about Spielberg.
Absolutely.
And, yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We love you. Goodbye.
Three, four. Everybody, love Mary Beans, love Mary Beans, love Mary